Welcome to Eye on Gainesville. I'm Katil Feltz. Gainesville was recently named one of 13 cities across the state to receive a grant from the state's Historic Preservation Fund. In fact, Gainesville received the grant for the most money, $18,900. In just a few minutes, we'll talk with Jessica Toller of the Gainesville Department of Planning and Development and find out how the grant money will be used. We'll also hear from Kathy Amos, chairman of the Gainesville Historic Preservation Committee, and we'll hear from two citizens who live right here in the Ridgewood Local Historic District. They went through the HPC's design review process. First, the latest news in Gainesville. The opening of Little League Day is about as community-oriented as it gets in Gainesville. Hundreds of boys and girls wore their jerseys and carried their banners to kick off the season April 18th. The Parade of Teams is the first real look at the season lineup. Another big part of opening day is the barbecue cooked the night before in the parking lot of Green Street Pool. Opening day is sponsored by Gainesville Parks and Recreation. For more information on spring and summer events, go to gainesville.org and click on Recreation. May is Historic Preservation Month, and the theme this year is This Place Matters. And this place does matter here in Gainesville, Georgia. Here to bring us up to date on some of the projects of the Historic Preservation Commission, Jessica Toller, who is a Special Projects Manager for our Department of Planning and Development, and Kathy Amos is the Chairman of the Historic Preservation Commission. Welcome to the program, ladies.
Thank you.
Kathy, we were just talking about the theme for this year's event, This Place Matters, or this special month. What do you think about that?
I think it's a wonderful theme. Gainesville does matter, and everything that is historic in Gainesville matters, so it was a special theme as far as I was concerned.
Jessica, let's start with you now telling us about, certainly Gainesville just received a large grant. Tell us about this money we've gotten now.
Okay. The Historic Preservation Fund grant is a federally funded grant through the National Park Service, and this money is earmarked for certified local governments throughout the nation, and it allows us to put money toward different preservation activities such as preservation plans, educational projects, and historic resource surveys.
What is a historic resource survey? We've had a lot of discussion about this in the past several years.
Yes, ma'am. The City of Gainesville initiated its resource survey program back in 2006 when we did a windshield survey, which is just like it sounds. You're driving around the city and you say, hey, that looks historic, that might be historic. And from there, we devised a multi-phase plan to get a much more detailed picture of what we have here in Gainesville. So this Historic Resource Survey allows us to do this fact-finding mission of what do we have in Gainesville? How many do we have? Where are they? And why are they significant to Gainesville?
You talk about the windshield survey. Is that still how the surveys are conducted?
No, ma'am. It's a much more detailed resource-by-resource approach, and the surveyor looks at each individual structure and it tries to get its story. What sort of architectural style is it, building type, who built it, who designed it, what does it tell about the architectural trends of the era in which it was built, and what does it contribute to Gainesville's growth and development.
So we're about to begin phase 4. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Can you give us some information on phase 3 though, and some of the results of that survey?
Yes, ma'am. As you said, we're about to start phase 4. We started with phase 1, obviously, if you count 1 through 4, right? But phase 1 started with our local historic districts, the Green Street and the Ridgewood, and a few properties around that. And from that point, we grew from that to include the National Register districts and recommendations of the surveyor. And we've gotten, and now in phase 3, we've again branched away from that inner core and are looking at properties in the Newtown community, Alta Vista Cemetery, the Legion Pavilion we've looked at individually, but also additional properties along Dixon, Green Street Circle, and Park Street and Candler Streets.
And how many people does it take to conduct a survey like that?
Generally, the team involves 2. You have your project historian and then one person working under her. And
that's a big project,
isn't
it?
It is. It takes months. We started each of the projects. We started in approximately August, September of the grant year, and it was not completed until June, July of the following year. So it is a very intensive process. There's a lot of field work which involves them going to each individual resource, taking pictures, but also there's a lot of background research, looking at the Sanborn fire insurance maps, old city directories, looking at books that have been written about the history of Gainesville and Hall County to try and collect all this information and put it together in a readable story about how Gainesville has developed architecturally and what that means for Gainesville.
So let's talk about Phase 4. When will it actually begin?
Likely, well, we can't start before July 1 because of the grant program, but likely we'll start in September when we've had time to submit Phase 3 to the state for its certification, and then also to get with the surveyor on the details and finalize our area. But ideally, we'd like to look at the rest of the Fair Street area neighborhood planning units, the Midtown area, and also properties that are in the Washington West Avenue area of the city, just off the downtown square.
Now, they're actually looking at every single property, or just taking certain pockets, or how does that?
They're looking at all resources that appear to have been built prior to 1970 in those designated areas. The idea is that properties or resources that are at least 50 years of age or older are historically significant, just on their age alone. But to help avoid having to turn right around and do the same sort of surveying effort year after year, we are looking at those properties or resources that are 60 years, 40 years or older, so that we then can just simply update our local register every 5 to 10 years, as opposed to doing some major initiative again in the near future.
We'll begin Phase 4 here shortly. How many phases do you anticipate?
We anticipate one additional phase of this initial surveying effort. In 2006, the Windshield Survey identified over 2,000 resources. And as you mentioned, it takes a lot of time and effort to do this type of research. And it also is very costly. So we've had to break it up. And we think that one more phase will get us to the finishing point where we can simply just maintain and add as resources grow older.
What makes Gainesville eligible to apply for this grant money?
We are a certified local government, which is essentially a designation that says we, the city of Gainesville, are partners with the state of Georgia and the United States National Park Service more specifically. And we are doing our grassroots level preservation, and we are doing the right thing. It's a way to identify and recognize the community for their best practices in preservation. And again, I think I mentioned earlier that this particular grant is only for CLGs, so that's exciting.